Hello, everybody, and welcome on into Touchline Table Talks. I am Martino Puccio. Alongside me, as always, is my co-host, Matt Santangelo. Huge week of footy. We are a couple of weeks away from the FIFA World Cup happening here in the United States. But first, there is one thing that we have to do, Matt, before we could start international football, and that is play the Champions League final, Arsenal PSG, Saturday at noon Eastern Time. This is a huge matchup, as we all know. Both are champions in their leagues, and now we'll see if PSG can be the first club to repeat since Real Madrid in the mid-2010s, or if Arsenal can capture their first ever European final trophy. Not some bullshit that they have over there. This is a huge matchup, highly anticipated. PSG plays some of the best football that we've seen in the Champions League the past couple of years, man. Arsenal, obviously, a very polarizing club, if you will, and the conversations around them. So we're entering Saturday, Matt. Who do you think will be crowned as Champions League winners, Arsenal or PSG?
I'd probably ride the momentum that Arsenal have built as they just won the Premier League, and that was something that took them so much and so many years to attain. I think that PSG are going to get it done, and they're going to be the first team to go back to back in the Champions League since Real Madrid, and I think they're going to actually put themselves in tremendous company because, in addition to Real Madrid, Milan were the team that won it back-to-back in the late 80s. So they could put themselves in tremendous company, and I think they have the squad to do it, and they also have the coach to do it as well. Now, this isn't to discredit what Arsenal have achieved and what they've been able to accomplish in really the last 2 years in the Champions League, but I think they had to give so much into that Premier League chase. They got over the hump, and I feel like now PSG are fully rested. They've had that sort of time to strategically view things and set their team up in a way to, essentially mitigate any threat that Arteta and Arsenal will throw their way. So I think PSG are going to go back to back and really put a stamp on themselves in the conversation as being one of the best teams that Champions League competition has seen in years.
Yeah, I think a lot of PSG's success is actually because their league is just not that competitive relative to where they are. I know teams have kind of kept it close. They play incredible football during the Champions League. There's no denying it. However, I'm never willing to actually put them in the conversations of best club side that I've ever seen. I don't think that they nearly face that fierce enough of competition back domestically. But what they're doing in the Champions League speaks for itself. But they are susceptible. It's not like that, the margin of like what their dominance was against Bayern, it was 2 games with a 1-goal margin. It wasn't necessarily, oh, they're picking them apart. They also got diced open on occasion. Now, the issue here with Arsenal is their firepower. Who is going to be finishing and scoring a goal? You've seen Trossard, Saka step up, Ederson on occasion, but there is no one that is a consistent threat or playing at the high enough level that a Dembele and Kvaratskhelia are playing at. That's where they obviously have the huge advantage. But I would also turn around and say at the same time, Arsenal's defense is light years ahead of what PSG have. And I think that's pure talent. Now here the issue comes down to the midfield. Who wins that matchup? I think on their day, it's easily PSG. But I do not put anything past what Arsenal can have at this moment in time. It is going to be a cagey affair. If this is an open game, then PSG will likely run away from it. But this is not the same matchup as it was against Inter last year. Arsenal, modern, physical, have a ton of top players at key positions. I'm actually leaning Arsenal with this.
Okay.
I think that they're going to grind this one out and get a victory. I think it would be so funny if they are the ones that lose out on the Carabao Cup and the FA Cup, ultimately to win the Champions League and the Premier League, when many teams thought that they would falter for that. Now, PSG, their trump card is their bench, too. Who they could bring on is Barcola, Doué, and then Kvara. I have not seen depth at a position like that in a very, very long time, maybe ever. I can't recall off the top of my head. Real Madrid, those 3-peat teams had insane depth as well. PSG can easily win this by a goal or 2 margin. I would not be shocked by this. But however, I've seen moments in which PSG can be had. I don't think that they're this completely dominant force that we've never seen before. They play some of the best. But for me, Arsenal, their defense will trump that for me in a 1-1 match. I just prefer to lean in the direction of Arsenal with this in a knockout match style game. And again, if it was over the course of 38 matches, I think PSG would be victorious in this. So I'm going to go with Arsenal in a 1-0 victory. And then you're going to be picking PSG to go back-to-back for the first time in a decade. So we'll see how that is going to end up going. Speaking about some glorious Barcelona teams and other dominant teams, Barca have money to spend again, Santangelo. They're going in for Anthony Gordon. This is an 80 million euro transfer. I think they were also still trying to get Marcus Rashford back in. I'm not really sure what's going to happen after that. But Anthony Gordon, huge move from Everton to Newcastle, ends up being a success over there. But Matt, 80 million euro for Anthony Gordon. I know times are different. More money is spent. But is he worth 80 million? And especially with Barca's situation?
Player value is very subjective and really comes down to what a given club will pay for a player. And look, on paper, is Anthony Gordon worth 80 million, the figure that he is confirmed to be going to Barcelona for? No, right? Because when you look at 80 million, you look at that number and you think, okay, there are countless players that have moved for figures around that or a little less. And you're thinking those players are a cut above Anthony Gordon. And this isn't to discredit Anthony Gordon as a player. He had a tremendous Champions League campaign, a player that has had moments in the Premier League with Newcastle. But how does this kind of look when it comes to the way that, we view talents in the attacking phase? Because this is a fee that was very similar to what Kvara went for to PSG, right? In the kind of the ballpark, right? Plus or minus a couple million.
Little different scenario, yeah.
Of course, but we're talking just strictly fee for fee. He ain't the player that Kvara is. He ain't half the player that Kvara is. So I think this is just kind of really boils down to Barcelona having that sort of spending power. And now that sort of, hey, we want to put our foot down and get players to build out this team. Even if Anthony Gordon isn't a player that is a mercurial talent for Barcelona, I think he's one of the players that is going to benefit from being in a system that is so fluid, that has attacking numbers in other areas, that he could just be one of the guys. And I think that's why he is joining Barcelona for this fee. It's excessive, of course, but at the end of the day, when you're Barcelona, you have the revenues they do. This is really just about padding that team, building out depth, and putting yourself in a position to, mirror what you did this year. And I think that's sort of the intent of what they're trying to do. Of course, they're looking at other players as well.
I don't get it. You have Julian Alvarez likely arriving. Bernardo Silva looks to be a strong candidate as well to join the side. We've watched Barcelona for years now, especially under Hansi Flick. This is not what you need to be focusing on improving, in my opinion. If you have money to spend, where is it on the defensive side of things, where you have gaping holes time and time again, that when you get carved open in some of these matches where Atletico handles you easily, an ancient Inter had no issues taking you apart. Obviously, that has to do with this style that Hansi Flick institutes within this side. I have a problem with spending all this money when I have Rafinha, when I have Rashford, when I have Lamine Yamal and all this other talent. 80 million for him, and I'm also bringing in Julian Alvarez, which is deemed to be likely. I struggle to agree with it, and it's not to say that I dislike Anthony Gordon. Anthony Gordon is a fine player, but there's levels to this. If I'm Barcelona and you finally have the money to spend after all these years, and I'm improving and spending 80 million on a player that I don't necessarily need, it's more of a luxury to have, I question it. I question the philosophy behind Barca and getting their first Champions League trophy since 2015 or 2014. I think it's like crazy to do this move. And I'm not saying it won't work out. I just see other issues with Barcelona currently. And I don't think that's the move you make if you have the 80 million. Julian Alvarez, I get it. Lewandowski's gone. You need to replace a striker. I don't think you need Gordon in here.
It's a luxury, Martino. It's a luxury, but I think it speaks to where those teams are at, the Barcelonas, the Bayerns, Real Madrid, PSG, so on and so forth, right? Where reportedly Bayern Munich and a couple other teams were interested in Anthony Gordon. And you look at Bayern Munich and you think, did they need him? Probably not. But they're in a position where they came up short in the Champions League. They've done everything they needed to do domestically. They're always going to dog walk that league. So you have such a luxury financially and from a attractive standpoint that you could say, yeah, probably Anthony Gordon is not really like the primary target we need, but he's a guy that can help the team that we have currently, can give us a reliable backup, and let's face it, these teams have money to blow. We come from a Milan
Barca
background.
don't though. Well, Barca don't. That's
we
the
come
problem.
From a Martino, they were Milan background that we're like, oh, these figures are crazy. These teams are throwing around money in the same thing in the Premier League.
But Barca's the exception to that rule, though. They're literally financially constrained for years, where they're having to sell off all these other players. And if you look at the Hansi Flick tenure, not a lot of high-profile moves coming in because they couldn't. And I'm just saying, look at how Bayern spent on Olise and how they went for Luis Diaz. They're smarter about their approach with things. I can't say the same for Barca. They tend to do these silly moves. And I'm not saying like years from now, Anthony Gordon, like if he's fine, he's a success at Barca, I'm not going to be surprised. But I just think with the issues that this club has, when you don't actually have like insane spending power, you can go like all in on one player, just like they will with Julian. Like it's just, to me, I don't think this solves the issues at Barcelona. It adds to a luxury. Just like I think Bayern's completely deep. They ran into the toughest team. I think Bayern, arguably the second best team in the world. Besides, like it's them, Arsenal, PSG. Barca have clear lingering issues that that they can be torn apart on occasion. They have to make other moves in the defensive department to improve this side of things, because look at the way like Arsenal build the defense. I think Bayern have a better defense, even though they're kind of flawed. I think more midfield wise. I think Barca just needed to improve that side of things. Anthony Gordon will work out there, but I don't think it was the player that they needed. All right, so we're gonna move over to the a World Cup kind of club side of things here. This kind of happened this morning. Everyone started to freak out about it. We know about plenty of it, being U.S. men's national team fans and also the host of that Milan podcast. Milan has been a circus with this coaching carousel this summer. So Mauricio Pochettino had reportedly spoken to Milan management, or brass at this point. There is really no management. There's no official CEO. There's no technical director, sporting directors. There's no manager. Obviously, Mauricio Pochettino had been approached by them. It is largely believed that he is going to be leaving the U.S. men's national team after the World Cup. Regardless, things have not been going well. We saw the leak of the squad and how all that kind of stuff has been happening. Player selection, friction, which is nothing new to U.S. men's national team. This is not exclusive to Poch. He is being approached by Milan, but Milan have also at the same time, to be clear to many, many people here, have reached out to Andoni Areola, who we've spoken about on our own podcast. There's been links to other Italian managers. It's all over the place. And it also was mentioned in this article by James Horncastle from The Athletic, is that Pochettino was approached by previous management.
Yeah.
So this isn't actually something like that is going to continue to have wheels. It's just someone that they reached out to. They don't have a director. Ibrahimovic is making these decisions. One, from the Milan perspective, this is insane. You're still going to have to wait for your manager to come in whenever the U.S. ends up getting eliminated from the tournament, unless they win it miraculously. Then I don't know if he'll want to join Milan at that point. But Poch to Milan, I don't think this has legs. I think it's nonsense. Where do you fall in line? Will Poch be the manager of AC Milan? And did you like how he's kind of gone about this, about his future, even though this is not kind of rare to see?
Pochettino will not be the manager of Milan, and I think there are many reasons as to why that is the case. One, Milan have so many changes and hires they need to make in the sporting area. Obviously, with the coach being at the very heart of that, the fact that the World Cup is going to be taking place in a couple of weeks and he won't be back essentially to fulfill any hypothetical duty with Milan until middle to late July, one, doesn't make sense because of all the changes. And you, frankly, you need him to have his hands in the day-to-day now, in the immediate, right? When it comes to the synergy with the directors and the players that they currently have, taking stock in the players they have and seeing who fits the way he would want to play. I just think this is one of those things that is getting sort of kind of dug up because of, one, the build up to the World Cup, conversation starters around U.S. men's national team, and then number two, the whole connection maybe between Pulisic and Pochettino. You have obviously Yunus Musa in this team as well, and Serie A being a league that has sort of evolved when it comes to being a hotbed for U.S. men's national team players. So I think that there's natural connections to be made, but I think it's merely just an inquiry that is done either by both Milan and the previous group of personnel, and also Pochettino's entourage. I think at this time, Milan's rumored targets and their pursuits of certain managers has been the most questionable thing, because it's been a very much mixed bag as far as philosophies and experience levels. So I think it really doesn't add up for Pochettino to coach Milan for the upcoming season.
No, I just don't see that ending up being a reality for them. I think Poch has obviously managed at big level clubs, and that's something that they were probably looking at. It just doesn't make sense, because if you're following this Milan situation, Ralph Rangnick kind of seems like the closest person to actually getting a job or even hired within this. And that's still kind of out there. And which is also even funnier, Matt, he is someone else who is managing at this World Cup for Austria. So this isn't somebody that, is going to be locked in. Poch also has a lot of experience, a lot of say in things. Very different from what Ralph Rangnick would be doing, which is basically running the entire club from a sporting perspective. I don't think Pochettino fits the ilk of that.
Yeah.
And who comes in as a director that would link up with him that makes sense? The only connection here is that they reached out to him. And that's really it, because he's a potential fit and that could manage at a club of
and
this
his contract expires at the end of the World Cup.
Exactly. That's what I'm saying. Like fit-wise, he could do that. And then on top of it, it's like he's managed at PSG. He's managed at Spurs. He's also been linked to the Real Madrid job before this, right? Like that's been floated. He is respected in that regard. I do not see this happening. I think this is all hot air. I think a lot of people are overreacting to it. And a lot of people also just didn't read what it said. It didn't say that he's taking the job. It's just that he was interested, and there's been contacts. So ultimately for me, Mauricio Pochettino will not be the manager at AC Milan. I'd be very surprised if that's the case. They do not fit the modern mold of what he is looking for and what they're looking for. This fit makes no sense. I don't see it happening, and everything leading up to this was an overreaction to what the U.S. men's national team situation is at this current moment in time, and it's even worse PR after the squad got leaked. And I think that's truthfully, that's it at the end of the day. I don't see anything coming of this. Anyone like kind of jumping the gun and being like, oh, Poch is gone now. Why is he negotiating? Dude, he's not the only one. So let's not be ridiculous with that. And secondly, he's not going to distract himself from the biggest job that he's currently had in his career. And he's had big ones. He's managed a Champions League final for Spurs. He's also sat there and had Messi, Neymar, and Mbappe with PSG. He's felt this pressure. It is totally different as a beast with U.S. men's national team and what's going on there. Poch to Milan, a no for both of us. Moving on to the final subject of the day, sticking in Serie A, sticking in, the Americas. Ederson to Manchester United is a huge rumor here that seems to be happening. I mean, listen, first of all, kudos to Atalanta for still getting this figure with 1 year left on his deal. This has been one of the better players within Serie A for the past couple of seasons. I marvel at him. I think he's a very strong defensive midfielder. He steps up in the biggest of moments, plays great in Europe, obviously plays great domestically in a tactically strong, proven league that is Serie A. Manchester United trying to retool, revamp their midfield. I think this is one of the smarter signings that they've had recently, or attempts to make it. I think Ederson to Manchester United should happen. I think it will happen. What do you make of this? Do you think he will be a success at United? Because I think he's got what it takes.
I think Ederson is a solid, well-rounded midfielder. I don't think he's the transformative midfielder that I think comes into Manchester United and seemingly is the main guy, the main cog. And I don't think he needs to be. I think that if he comes in here and he is that runner, that guy that covers on both ends of the pitch, can get forward. He didn't really have too many goal contributions when it came to Atalanta, but I think from what his role was under multiple coaches, I think he did a tremendous job of doing that. He doesn't have an extensive injury record. He's played in pretty big games in the Champions League. He obviously won the Europa League with Atalanta as well over Bayer Leverkusen. This is a really established player that at 26, 27 years old really kind of checks off a lot of boxes for what Manchester United are looking for. And I think that's exactly what they really need in a moment where, hey, they're getting back into the Champions League. They're going to need additional midfielders. Casemiro is leaving or has already left, right? So you need to sort of restock and retool. And I think Ederson, while maybe it's a little steep for him being, with 1 year left on his contract, I think Manchester United, one, have the financial capacity to do it. Two, with them being back in the Champions League, the need is warranted there for them to make a move like this. And I think Ederson is just a standout, solid midfield acquisition. And I think, truthfully, the fact that they get it done or are going to get it done pretty quickly, uncontested, I think is a really good thing for them as well, because players like this, you want to get into the system very soon, very early, so they can integrate and settle in. So I like the move for this player and club.
Yeah, I think it benefits for all parties because Atalanta getting this fee with 1 year left is substantial for them. I mean, they just consistently do this. I would say that a lot of the players that you see come out of Atalanta, some people are kind of hesitant about signing them just because they think that they're system based. I would argue to you and prove to you that this year of all years would prove that that's not the case. Ivan Juric comes in. He does a terrible job, gets sacked almost immediately, and this is post Gasperini. Palladino comes in. Ederson was still one of their best players this season.
Yeah,
they still managed to grab a European position, stepped up in big matches, pretty much dominated Milan at that point.
Which wasn't easy. I mean, which is easy these days, but
But the point remains though is that this guy steps up to the level, and this isn't like as much as I love Patrick Dorgu. Dorgu was a little bit of like, okay, you're paying a lot of money. He's playing very well on a crap side. Ederson, as you mentioned, Europa League proven, Champions League proven, Serie A proven, international player. This is a good signing. Kobe Mainoo, we'll see what ends up happening with him too. You mentioned Casemiro, and I think you made the perfect point there. You don't have to be the star to carry Manchester United. Just be a cog in that wheel that you can help trend Manchester United in the right direction, because it maybe looks like they're doing that for the first time in quite some time.
And I think, real quick, too, just to add on to that, I think that Manchester United fans shouldn't get any sort of PTSD when it comes to, right, we're going back into Serie A to get a high-profile or expensive player, right? You mentioned Dorgu. Prior to that, they had Rasmus Højlund. Prior to that, they had Traore. And those players have all been at very different parts of their career than what Ederson is coming in to this Manchester United equation at, right? This is, again, just to reiterate, a more established player at the part of his career where he's in his prime. He's ready for that big move. He checks off all the boxes. This isn't a raw, project player that I think Traore, Højlund, and Dorgu were when they arrived. So I think that with that being said, and United being a more healthier, stable project right now than what we've seen in recent years, again, it's a really good acquisition, a sound acquisition that I think helps them in the immediate as a plug-and-play option in that midfield.
Yeah, I think Manchester United, I can't argue for once at all about a move that they made in the summer transfer window. So again, quick episode. Thank you guys so much for tuning into Touchline Table Talks. We love discussing all this. Again, don't forget to like, subscribe, give us 5 stars on Apple and Spotify. Do not forget about that. Enjoy the Champions League final. Best of luck to all you PSG and Arsenal supporters. And again, get ready for the World Cup, because that is where a lot of the content is going to be. Again, you can follow Matt everywhere at Matt_Santangelo and at Matt_Santa22 on Instagram. And for myself, you could follow me at Martino Puccio and at Martino Puch on Twitter. Tons of content coming your way over the summer and the next month with the FIFA World Cup just around the corner. Other than that, take care, guys. We'll see you next time.